Thank you for staying with us. It's time now to take a look at stories making headlines on Nigerian newspapers. And I begin with the blueprint. 86 days to elections. Hoodlums destroy thousands of PVCs for offices, 1,993 ballot boxes, 399 voting cubicles, 22 generating sets, also vandalized. Success of election depends on our integrity. Yakubu speaking. Reps condemn attacks on facilities, urge police to enforce peace accord. All right, all of the details on the front page of the blueprint. We move now to the front page of the Daily Trust. Election violence claims 1,525 lives in 25 years. Boko Haram, IPOB, bandits, biggest threat to 2023 polls. A report made that assertion. Politicians' excesses pose risk to elections. Analysts are speaking. You find all of the details on the front page of the Daily Trust. We move now to the front page of the Nigerian News Direct. It says governors neglect worsening Nigeria's high poverty woes. Governors neglect worsening Nigeria's high poverty woes. The federal government speaking there, it says governors only functioning in their state capitals frowns against channeling resources to building airports, skyscrapers, laments poverty paradox in oil-rich Bayelsa and Sokoto. Details on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct. To this Nigeria now, still talking about the same story. Federal government blames state for high level of poverty, says 72% of poor people reside in rural areas, urges governors to address rising index. And to the front page of the Daily Times, which the paper is doing the same line, says federal government blames governors for alarming poverty rate, says governors prioritize building flyovers, airports to fighting against hunger. As FEC, that's the Federal Executive Council, approves compulsory use of mother tongue in primary schools. And on the front page of the Nation newspaper, minister states to blame for rising poverty hardship. States to blame for rising poverty hardship. All the details on the front page of the Nation newspaper. To the Guardian now, NGF mom as federal government shifts blame for high poverty to governors. That's the Governors Forum. Mom as the federal government shifts blame for high poverty to governors. We will be waiting for their reaction. Perhaps we'll see that in coming days, rather. To the First News newspaper now, students secretly arraigned, remanded over Aisha Buhari tweet. Student secretly arraigned, remanded over Aisha Buhari tweet. You find all the details on the front page of the First News newspaper. To the Leadership newspaper now. Amid strong condemnation, Aisha Buhari's critic, Aminu, arraigned in secret, jailed. COP offers free legal service. Nigerian students, others demand his immediate release. Aminu is a respectful, peaceful boy, says family. All right, to the Punch newspaper. Fuel scarcity, no planned price hike, says federal government. Queues spread. There will not be fuel price hike during Yuletide period, says government. NMDPRA assures motorists current stock can last for 34 days. We can only be hopeful. All right, finally, now on the front page of the Business Day, black market petrol at 350 naira per litre mocks subsidy. Black market petrol at 350 naira per litre mocks subsidy. All the details on the front page of the Business Day. All right, let's quickly look at this story on a majority of the papers this morning, talking about the Minister for State and National Planning, Clement Agba, speaking about the fact that the governors are to blame with regards to the level of poverty in the country. He said the federal government has made a lot of effort through its social programs, but that the state governors were not complementing that effort, especially with the kind of projects that they carry on, building flyovers, skyscrapers, and all of it that were not beneficial to those in the rural areas, because he said the poverty we are seeing is dominated in the rural areas. He was actually speaking after the Federal Executive Council meeting. He was speaking with journalists when the question with regards to the MBS report on the level of poverty, talking about the multidimensional poverty in the country that has placed about 65% of poverty in the north and 35% in the south. And that was his reaction.
Well, you know, this figure that came out last week, about 133 million Nigerians living in poverty, is the first time that we're interrogating poverty, especially outside the pocket. But usually, it's about urban poverty. It's usually about how much we spend a day. We spend about $1 plus per day and stuff like that. We use that as the metrics for determining poverty. Now, it has spread to rural areas. And we have to be a little careful with these statistics, because statistics tend to be obfuscating. They tend to veer us away from some sociological, cultural parameters of standard of living, cost of living, and so on. In the context of how we live in the urban areas, it is very easy to dismiss life in the rural area as poor. Yes. I remember the author of Blonde, Joyce Carol Oates, who was told that she grew up poor in a rural area in the United States. He said, yes, people always say that we're poor, but we didn't feel poor.
Right.
You didn't feel poor because you go back to your backyard, you get your beans, you get your rice, you get your tomatoes, you don't have to pay, you don't need money to do that.
Yes.
You don't need to drive a car to get to your farm, because your farm is not that far away. In fact, you like the leisurely walk, because when I was in the village, I accompanied my grandmother to the farm, and they didn't see that as some kind of burden, doing that. So we should be a little careful about really classifying them in the same way we classify the urban poor. The urban poor needs to get into the Molue. We don't have Molue anymore. Some of these bosses, you struggle to wake up very early in the morning. You didn't sleep very well because you didn't have electricity. Even if you had electricity, the house is choked, and so on and so forth. You don't have gas emission problems in the village. Yeah, they get the carbon dioxide that comes from the trees, and the oxygen levels are relatively balanced. It's getting worse because of intrusion of urban life into rural areas. We have to recognize that. But we have to be careful about that, because the rural person will be thinking, how am I going to feed my family today? The urban person. The rural person is not really thinking that, because you
get your produce from the farm.
You get your produce from the farm. You are not thinking about paying rent. Many of them don't pay rent because they live in their own thatch houses. It's my own thatch. It doesn't have air conditioner. It doesn't have. We don't have the SETI that you have in the part that you have to sweat to pay. I don't have AC. I don't have television. But I don't really miss it. And in those days when I was spending my holidays in the village, I was always baffling. Why do I not miss television? I never miss television. But when I go home to Lagos, and then I started watching television every day. I was saying, what's going on? When I was in the village, I didn't miss television.
You have people around.
Yes, you have
talking.
The people around me were television enough. So sometimes we have to be careful about how we interrogate these statistics.
But perhaps...
But this issue is actually, this issue about poverty, poverty of the pocket. It only concerns them in the urban areas because you need the cash
No,
to
but
get
we must
around.
also remember the aspect of security, how it's affecting these same rural people from going to their farms. So they are
Yes.
not able to get some of
That
this
is
produce.
that is a recent phenomenon. Some
Right.
of them cannot go to the farm now because of insecurity. But the question is that the insecurity are tamped down. The real question I want to understand, which has not been addressed, is whether these people have started returning to their village, because even as we speak today, what we have in terms of agricultural produce is far more than we ever consume in this country. Because in the rural areas, they produce more food than we ever get consumed, because we have not created the parameters
For storage.
And we stop probably, the wastage, the last statistic I had, the wastage is about 40 to 60% of
Wow.
food stuff that should be turned into either the industrial process or even consumed by our people. But we don't, because of this problem of storage. So those things are not interrogated yet. The other issue about what Agba said that is significant is that he's saying that the federal government is not responsible for rural area. The federal government cannot say that, to start with. The whole country is, as Shakespeare said, the whole country is your oyster. You know, everywhere belongs to you. When you are a minister of power, you're a minister of power for rural and urban Nigeria.
Right.
So don't sugarcoat that responsibility. But it's a shared responsibility with the state government.
Absolutely, because that's what I wanted to go.
What the federal government, I expected them to say was, we have been giving money to the state government, huge amounts of money, amounting to trillions over the past years. How have these governors accounted for it? Why do you go and build airports when you don't need airport in Jalingo? Where do you go and build airport in Ilesha? Or anywhere when you know that the people there, all they need more is credit? The problem with us in this country is that we don't know how to use money. America during the time of the the Great Depression in the United States, Roosevelt, using the Keynesian theory, Maynard Keynes came with the idea of the demand pool, that the more when you throw money into public projects like infrastructure and all of that, you create jobs.
Yes.
That works. But the problem with us here is that when we do it, we are not creating enough jobs, because the other part of creating prosperity is putting credit into the market. We don't have enough credit to stimulate the economy. When we give 10,000 naira to Mama Edo to go and do trade, it's good for her, but it doesn't stimulate the economy as such. You can make them eat, they eat, but it doesn't stimulate the economy. What stimulates the economy is ideas, investment in large scale. That's what goes on in these Western countries. They have banks that do it. Our banks don't do it. They come out with profits of trillions every year. Well, how much have they done to stimulate the economy? All you need is to take the risk, put credit in the economy where people who have ideas, and give them money, and then they create jobs. They stimulate the economy at various ways. It's like a thousand points of light in the economy. Every part is exploding. Every part is exploding and comes up into a central pool.
Time will not allow us to talk more on this, because I can see that the passion with which you are saying that it's the truth, though. But then again, we cannot take away the fact that the governors have a responsibility,
too much responsibility
that they are not delivering on, as you pointed out.
Exactly. It doesn't mean that Buhari should have collected the money and created the policy himself and said the governor. No, it shouldn't have. So the point is that there's enough blame to go around. And the governors keep telling the people,
they take a big
it's the federal government, it's Buhari that failed, Buhari has his own blame, but the state governments they are the laboratories of democracy.
All right, we'll leave it there now.